It was a warm night in London, and the city was buzzing with the energy of Amy Winehouse's concert that night. The stage was set, the lights flashing in shades of blue and gold, reflecting the atmosphere of mystery and anticipation. The singer brought with her. The crowd was eager, the sound of chatter and laughter filled the room, but there was a tension in the air. Amy stood backstage, wearing a classic black dress and her signature undone bun. She was nervous, but not in a typical way. It wasn't the typical concert pressure, but rather a sense of unease that accompanied her every time she took the stage. Her heart was beating faster than usual, a mix of anxiety and empathy, because something told her that tonight would be different. She knew her fan club was there, waiting for a night of music and excitement. But there was something more in the air. A very special fan was about to be the center of attention, without even knowing it yet. The tension was rising by the minute. The band was ready, the musicians were sharp, the audience was gearing up for the show. But Amy, deep in her thoughts, felt a need to do something more that night, something that would change everything. She could hardly imagine what was about to happen, and how her reaction to it would transform someone's destiny and touch everyone present that night. In the crowd, there was one man in particular who wasn't just there to see Amy perform, but to experience a defining moment in his life. Alex, a devoted Amy fan, was in a desperate situation. He had recently lost his mother, and the pain was still fresh in his soul. Amy was more than just an artist to him. She represented an escape from reality, a way to cope with loss and her. Music had always been a beacon of light in his darkest hours. However, the pain was becoming unbearable, and he could no longer bear the thought of living without his mother. With a mixture of sadness and anguish, he arrived at the concert, knowing it would be the last time he would see the singer live, but not with the hope of enjoying himself. He wanted, in fact, to ask for one last piece of advice, one last word of comfort, as if somehow Amy were the answer to his existential questions. Arriving at the venue, he felt a profound emptiness, as if he were attending an event that wouldn't have the same meaning without his mother there with him. As the crowd prepared for the show to begin, Alex approached the stage, hoping for one last chance to connect with the singer who, in his mind, had always been his greatest inspiration. He didn't know how he would do it, but somehow he knew that this night would be decisive. His hands were shaking, his mind was confused, and his heart was pounding with overwhelming force. He was about to ask for something he never thought he'd have the courage to ask. The show began, and Amy took the stage with her unmistakable presence, capturing the attention of everyone around her. The audience, ecstatic, applauded non-stop. Every chord of her band seemed to accelerate their heartbeats, and she gave herself completely to the music, as if it were her last chance to experience something truly hers. She sang as if each word came from her soul, as if music were the only thing capable of relieving the tensions she felt within. Yet even at the height of her performance, something wasn't right. Amy felt a growing unease, a sense that something important was about to happen. It wasn't the energy of the audience or the vibrancy of the musical notes that worried her. It was something deeper, something she couldn't explain, but she knew it had to do with the fan in the crowd, waiting for a chance to be seen, to be heard. She felt the weight of this need to help someone, and it made her hesitate for a moment. The song began to play, and the lights grew brighter. The audience sang along, but Amy still felt the man's presence in the crowd, as if he were trying to communicate with her somehow. And then, out of nowhere, she stopped singing. Amy, with an empathetic expression on her face, looked at the audience and urged calm. She then did something many would consider risky. She stopped the show in the middle of a popular song and looked directly at the crowd, saying, "I need a moment." The lights dimmed and silence fell over the venue, leaving everyone in attendance confused but also curious. What was going on? Why had Amy stopped singing? Amy's voice was strong and clear, but with a soft undertone that captured everyone's attention. I feel like someone here needs help, someone who might be lost and no longer knows how to find the strength to carry on. If you're here, no matter what's going on in your life, you're not alone. I know that, and that's why I'm going to pause this show for a moment, because there's something more important going on. Amy's words echoed through the room, and Alex, who had moved closer to the stage, felt his heart beat faster. He knew this was happening for him. He knew this break in the show was his chance to connect with the singer who somehow held the key to his recovery from his grief. Amy, her gaze fixed and piercing, searched for someone in the crowd. "Alex, if you're here, come up to the stage. I want you to know that you're not alone. Your pain is legitimate, but you have more strength than you realize." It was direct, simple, yet emotionally charged. The audience was stunned. Alex, his heart racing, could hardly believe what he was hearing. It was as if the universe itself had conspired to have him there at that moment, receiving the help he so desperately needed. He hesitated for a second, but the pain and the need to connect with Amy compelled him to step forward. He didn't know what he would do when he took the stage, but something inside him urged him on. With tears in his eyes, Alex walked onto the stage. He approached Amy, who was waiting for him with open arms, like a true friend, without judgment or pressure. She knew exactly how he was feeling. "I'm here for you, Alex," she said with a gentle, welcoming smile. When Alex reached Amy, she hugged him with comforting strength. He didn't know what to say, but he felt a wave of relief. He was there on stage with the woman who had been his inspiration and comfort for years. They didn't need words, for the exchange of energy was enough to understand what they both felt. Amy whispered to him, "I know you're going through a difficult time, but your pain doesn't define who you are. Believe in yourself as I believe in you." These words, simple yet profound, touched Alex in a way he never imagined. The pain he felt seemed to lessen as he felt welcomed, validated, and finally understood. He looked out at the crowd and felt a deep connection with each person present. He was no longer alone. Amy, with her keen sensitivity, felt this was the perfect moment to offer a message to everyone. The pain is real, but so is our ability to overcome. No matter what we've faced, we can always find the strength to carry on. With these words, she drew the audience to applaud Alex, not as a fan, but as someone who had overcome a major obstacle in that moment. When Amy Winehouse asked the audience to applaud Alex, the impact was immediate. The crowd, which until then had been in pure excitement from the energy of the show, now fell into a deep, almost reverential silence. Each round of applause seemed to carry with it a refreshing energy, not just for Alex, but for everyone present. The applause wasn't just for Amy's performance or the music she always interpreted with such heart, but for the humanity of her attitude. She had interrupted a high-impact show to offer someone a chance to breathe, to connect with him in a deep and genuine way. Amy, seeing the effect her decision had on the audience, felt even more connected to everyone present. It wasn't just about being a star on stage. It was about being a real, sensitive, and empathetic person. She knew that the show, which was normally an exchange between artist and audience, now took on another dimension. The real spectacle here was what was going on in the hearts of each of those watching the scene unfold. Alex, realizing he had been at the center of something so grand, felt a mix of emotions. He felt vulnerable, but at the same time, at peace. As if, somehow, that hug from Amy had lifted an immense burden from his chest. He was no longer carrying his pain alone, and the audience had become a true source of support. Each round of applause sounded like an affirmation that he no longer needed to fight his inner demons alone. He was there, before Amy, and before an audience that now saw him in a completely different way. He was no longer just the fan singing along to Amy Winehouse's songs. He was now part of something bigger, a collective movement of love and healing. Amy, with her serene gaze, said nothing more. She didn't need to. The silence following the applause was enough. The impact of her decision had been conveyed without words, and the audience felt the magnitude of the moment. For them, the musical performance of the night no longer mattered. What mattered was the gesture of humanity they had just witnessed. Amy Winehouse, as much of a star on stage as she was, had become a true light in someone's life, and this gesture of altruism was worth more than any musical note or show she could give. As the show continued, but with a different tone, Alex was guided back to his seat in the crowd. He felt as if the pain that had plagued him for months had dissipated in a split second as, on stage, Amy offered him the attention and comfort he hadn't known he needed. That night, which to him seemed like just another event to distract himself from the pain, had become the turning point of his life. With each step back to his seat, he felt lighter, stronger, as if he had finally been given permission to leave the pain behind. The moment of vulnerability was a turning point, and he now knew he didn't have to carry the weight of his loss alone. Sitting in his chair, Alex looked out at the audience and saw the faces of people who, like him, were likely experiencing hardship, loss, and crisis. He realized that Amy's gesture was not just a help to him, but to everyone there. By demonstrating her humanity, she brought forth a collective force of empathy and connection that transcended the songs and chords of the night. Amy's music has always been about deep feelings, but in that moment, she demonstrated something even more powerful: the ability to transform suffering into hope through the simple act of caring. What Amy did was so magnificent that it felt like she had given each person in the audience a new perspective on how to deal with their own pain. In the end, Alex knew that night would be a memory he would cherish for the rest of his life. It was as if he had lived two lives in one marked by loss and the other by renewal. He would never forget Amy's kindness the moment she stopped everything for him, a simple fan, and for everyone else there seeking more than just a night of fun. Amy had given him something priceless, the chance to rebuild himself. After that moment of profound connection with Alex, Amy returned to the stage and resumed the show. But instead of retaining the electric energy of before, there was an aura of serenity in her presence. Her movements were smoother, her eyes more attentive to the audience, as if she were now truly immersed in the moment. She looked at the audience with a new perspective, and the show, which had initially been conducted as just another spectacle, now became an experience of collective healing. Each song she sang took on new meaning. The words of her songs, which used to speak of pain, struggle, and despair, now felt like a balm, an outlet for her inner anguish. Amy, who had always given herself so viscerally to her art, now sang to transform, to soothe the souls of others in the same way she had been soothed that night. The audience, which had previously been overcome by the excitement of the songs, was now touched by a wave of introspection and emotion. Just being there that night, in Amy's presence, was an experience no one would forget. Amy knew that. For many, she was a figure admired only for her art, but that night she felt, perhaps for the first time, the true power of her music. She wasn't just a star. She was a catalyst for change, a force that could move mountains not with her songs, but with her humanity. The audience understood this, and something profound was forming in that atmosphere. The show was no longer just about applause or fame. It was about connecting with people on an emotional level that transcended the superficiality of fame. The show ended in a way no one there could have imagined, with a unique, silent, and understanding energy. Amy left the stage a transformed woman with a sense of peace that came not from the audience's acclaim, but from the direct impact she had on someone's life. The night, which began as a performance, ended with a true lesson in empathy, care, and human connection. Alex, for his part, left the show feeling like a new life was opening up before him. He had found himself in a moment of despair, but Amy's unexpected help made him realize he still had much to live for, much to learn, and much to offer the world. He knew that, as Amy had shown him, moments of vulnerability were not signs of weakness, but of strength. That night wouldn't just be a memory of a show he'd seen, it would be the memory of a new beginning, of the decision to look at life with more purpose and meaning. Amy Winehouse's legacy that night wasn't just a display of talent or charisma, but a practical lesson in how we can impact the lives of others when we choose to be vulnerable, when we choose to interrupt our own journey to help those most in need. She left her mark not only on music, but on the souls of those fortunate enough to witness the night she did more than sing, she healed. Amy Winehouse's story that night will forever be etched in the memories of all those present as a testament to the true strength that lies in acts of generosity and empathy.